and residents in the city. They had been shutting off water for years, but nowhere on this scale.
Welcome, welcome. We are back again, beloved community, with yet another installment of the People's Water Board Coalition's Water Wednesdays webcast. And as always, I'm here with my beloved co-host, Valerie Jean.
Hi, everyone.
We can't forget our behind-the-scenes tech person, Miss Angelica. She keeps us running smoothly and consistently week after week. She is simply extraordinary. And today, people, we have the honor and the privilege to have Dr. Kari Brown, who's a professor of sociology right here in Detroit at Wayne State University. He's a Central United Methodist Church member. He's a member of our parent organization, Michigan Welfare Rights. And we also have two of his sociology students with him, Miss Haley Rouser and Claire Stone. Thank you so much for being here. And they're going to talk to us about some of the research they did around water affordability and water insecurity today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you all so much for being here. We did a presentation, you all did a presentation at the Michigan Welfare Rights Office, and it was so good that we really wanted to talk about it with our viewers and interview you all. And since it's a short show, I'm going to jump right in. Again, thank you so much for being here. First, we're going to start off with the basics. Like, why did you and your students pick water affordability for their research? Like, what was the driving force behind that and the decision?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And before I give my response, I'd like to say that I've been following you guys for a long time, and I really admire the work that you're doing in fighting for water affordability in the city and throughout the state. I mean, it's admirable, and it's you guys are doing mission work. That's how I see it. It's mission work.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So yeah, I mean, this is part of my research. I do research on religion and social justice, and I really got interested in pursuing this line of work when I began attending Central. This is 20 years ago. I moved to Detroit, and I began working at Wayne State in 2005. And when my wife and I, when we moved to the city in 2005, we moved right across the street from Central. And when we moved across the street from Central, there was an anti-war rally going on at the time. This was 2005, so this is during the Iraq War. And at the time, Reverend Rowe was the pastor, and he was
We love us some Reverend Rowe. He's a dear friend.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so he was leading this rally, and I walked across the street, and I said, I need to be here. I need to be at this church. So I began attending, and then as I was attending, I was introduced to a whole host of issues that Central was leading, from anti-war to protecting unions. Every year they, of course, they lead a Martin Luther King Day celebration. And so that really got me thinking about what is the role of churches in pursuing social justice. And so more recently, I began pursuing this book on this project, and I was looking at what Central was doing, and I came across Marion Kramer and Martin Taylor, their work. I came across what you were doing, and I said, this is something absolutely. This is something that I think that we should pursue, that I should pursue. And so that's how I got interested in it. And then I thought this would be a great opportunity for students to get involved and learn how social movements actually happen from the ground up. And I think the last thing I'll say about this is that one of the reasons why I really wanted to pursue this project is because for a long time I've taught about religion and social justice, and I've written about it, but I haven't done it. And so when I was, when I thought about this class, I thought this is an opportunity to actually do, walk the walk. I say that I'm concerned about these types of issues. Well, I need to do something about it, not just be on the sidelines. It felt exploitative just to examine what groups are doing and not actually try to help, do what I can to help. So that was another, a big reason why I wanted to pursue this project. I'm at this point in my career. I've been at Wayne State now for 20 years. where I should do more than talk about what I'm saying. So that's why I decided to get involved with this project.
Just a follow-up question really quickly to your students, Haley and Claire. Um, before this class, had you ever thought about water affordability, or was it ever something that you had experienced and that something that you were thinking about, or you'd never thought about that before?
I'm gonna be honest, I'm from up north and we had well water, so water affordability wasn't really much of an issue for us. There was obviously like other issues like gas and electric, other utilities, but just like a water bill in itself wasn't an issue. So it wasn't really something that I thought about before interning with Michigan Welfare Rights.
Yeah, I'm in a very similar boat. I'm also from up north of here, pretty similar area as Haley. My family had well water for most of my life, and even when we did manage city water, it wasn't really a thought that entered my mind. But I heard about it in one of my classes, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Maybe I should take the course, see what happens with it.
During your research, when did you kind of come to realize that even folks who have a well, like if something goes wrong with their well and they can't afford to fix it, it's a water affordability issue, right? So was there an interconnection at some point in time where you realized, oh, actually, this is a water affordability issue, right? Was that part of it or no?
I think to a little bit of an extent. I think mostly we were interviewing like a lot of like senators and representatives, and I think interviewing them, a lot of them were talking about how it isn't just like a city issue, it is like a rural community issue, and I think that's like kind of talking to them and having them tell us that, and then doing like the research later on kind of explain that it wasn't just a city issue, it was like a rural community issue as well.
I do want to. I've been thinking about this a lot. I do want to contextualize this issue of water affordability. And first of all, my students did an amazing job in the class, and they did an amazing job with
They did.
presentation. They did amazing with it, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So the broader issue that we were looking at is why is water affordability? Why is it something that has not already happened? Why has the state, Michigan Welfare Rights, People's Water Board, for the good part of 20 years, have been engaging in civil disobedience, have been filing lawsuits, have been lobbying, have been encouraging people to vote the right way. And we're almost there in terms of getting statewide legislation to ensure that water is adjusted to household income. Almost there, but it's been 20 years of this struggle, which is not unusual, but 20 years. And to me, it was puzzling when I was looking at the public opinion data. My dad's a political scientist at Wayne, and we did a survey last year, and we surveyed people in Southeast Michigan. We surveyed over 5,000 people. We asked them a host of questions about water affordability. We asked a host of questions, including water affordability. And in our survey, we found that in Southeast Michigan, which includes, we interviewed people in Macomb, Oakland, Wayne County, with oversample in Detroit, and Washtenaw County. And we found that over 75% of people that we surveyed said, yes, they would support legislation that would adjust water rates to household income. And that was the case. The majority of the people across all the counties that we interviewed, Macomb, which is a county that tends to be a little bit more conservative on these issues, they over close to 2/3 of their population supported water affordability. And so to me, it's puzzling that we look at public opinion polls on this matter, and you look at the people that are the most passionate about it, and I'm talking about the people that would actually go to Lansing and attend a hearing on water affordability, those folks, most people say this is a good idea. And yet, it's been a struggle for this legislation to pass. And so to me, it began thinking about, well, this is an issue about power. That's what
That's
it's about. This is an issue about political power. And the problem that we face is not just a Southeast Michigan issue, and it's not just a Michigan issue, it's a national issue, is that money dictates politics in this country. And so if you look at the zip codes with the highest rates of water shutoff during the peak period of water shutoffs between 2013 and 2020, and you look at the zip codes where people are at the most risk of their water being shut off, which means that they are in arrearages, it tracks very well with those communities with the highest levels of poverty, which tracks very well with those communities that donate the least amount of money to local, statewide, and federal political campaign. That is important because elected officials listen to money. That's what they listen to. That is what is funding their social media commercials. That's what's funding their travel. That's what's funding their appearances on TV. That's what's funding it. And so if there is no fear that I can ignore the population, I can ignore the activists. I don't have to worry about them primarying me because the money that is being put forth
Bought and
from
paid
my
for.
campaign is not coming from these communities.
No,
Yeah.
So
I'm already
therefore,
bought and paid for.
because they're already bought and paid for.
Yeah.
So then what happens? People say, well, they're not listening to me, so then why vote? Which allows elected officials to say, well, I'm not going to talk about water, utilities, or public transportation because the people that say that they care about these issues, they're not even voting. And so it
Mhm.
becomes kind of reciprocal here.
Mm-hmm. A vicious cycle. If
It's
you
a
would
vicious
say.
cycle. It's a vicious,
Mhm.
vicious
Because
cycle.
there's so many ways that power cuts off the voices of marginalized people and people, poor people
It's
all over the
purposeful.
world.
Right,
And, when it comes to water,
right, right.
people can't live without water, so that's extreme power, right?
It is.
When you can keep
It is.
water
It is.
from
It
poor
is.
people, elderly
It
people,
is.
that's an extreme amount of power
It,
that
it is.
that you get
It
to
is.
like sitting
It
on a
It is
is.
the
throne.
most powerful resource to
It is.
weaponize.
And
And then it's weaponized all over the world.
It
It
get
is.
it is.
And this is the last point I'm making this point about power is that power is geographically located. So the fact that we have pockets of concentrated poverty in Southeast Michigan and throughout the state means, and you have concentrated geographic locations of wealth, which correlate with race, means you have concentrated areas of political power and concentrated areas of political powerlessness.
That's right.
Yes.
And so this
In
is
mostly black and brown communities.
that's exactly what's going on. Exactly what's going on.
It's a really important point, Professor.
The fact that there's not enough discussion about what needs to happen to ensure that people that are low income and working class have an opportunity to live in communities that have more resources, which means they have more political power, which means that the issue that you care about actually rise up to the top of the policy priority list of the people that you're putting in office. That needs to happen. Because if it
Yeah.
doesn't happen, then what can happen is what Candace Miller was doing. Saying, oh, it's
Right.
just a Detroit issue.
Yeah.
It's just people that are irresponsible issue. It's just people that live outside of my neighborhood. It's just their issue. And so all of that tracks with
And how dare
race.
she, honestly? How dare
But
she? The unmitigated goal.
I agree. But
That's a
that's the
rabbit
bigger
hole.
issue, though.
Yeah.
That's the bigger issue. It's
is.
the issue of political power, which tracks on race and geography. I just wanted to just put that out.
It's an important point.
Definitely.
It's a
That's
really
a
important
rabbit
point.
hole that you go down because then it makes you have to look into redlining and racial profiling and all of these other things that come up that affect the fact that maybe some of those low income and working class people don't live in those neighborhoods that have more political power because of the way they those tactics and strategies to keep people out of their neighborhoods.
Exactly.
That just brings me to can you tell us a little bit about your process and how you made the decision of who you were going to talk to and contact during your research?
Or
So
both.
when we started with the interview, we were looking at a more of a legislative side. So specifically like interviewing legislators involved in the original passing of the bill as is. Like one example is we interviewed members that were on the committee that was overseeing the passing of the bill or like putting it through to vote when the original water affordability bill was proposed by Stephanie Chang. I think that was SB 247 or something like that. Yeah, so when that bill went up to vote, we interviewed people who were on that board and senators from areas who had who had issues with water affordability or water related problems in their districts.
To kind of decide who we were going to interview, we had to go back to our actual question, which was why didn't the bill pass in the first place? So that's how we kind of picked that we were going to interview legislators rather than people who struggled with water shutoffs or who support water affordability, because we know that it's an issue and we know that people support it. From Dr. Brown's past research too, we know a lot of people support the bills. It was just coming up with an answer as to why didn't they pass. So I think interviewing the legislators would provide a good example or reasoning as to why they didn't pass, because they were the ones that didn't pass it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dr.
Yeah, I'll pick. Great job, Haley and Claire.
Absolutely.
I just piggyback
Yeah.
off of what they said. So as Haley stated, the question that we were asking this semester is, why did the water affordability bills that State Senator Stephanie Chang introduced and sponsored, why did they not pass during the Language session? That was our big question. And it was a question for us because for some of the reasons that I stated before, when you look at public opinion in Southeast Michigan indicates that the vast majority of people in our region believe that it's a good idea. And if you look at the people who actually showed up to the hearings, State Senator Stephanie Chang introduced her bill during the 2023-2024 legislative session during October 2023. And then the Senate version went to committee during that month. The House version of these bills went to committee during that month. And then there were committee hearings shortly after these bills were introduced and then reported to committee. And you look at the people that showed up, the vast majority of people that showed up to these hearings, including people from Central and Michigan Welfare Rights and people Water Board, said, great. The vast majority, over 90%, said great. So, and you look at the people that served on the committees in which the water affordability bills were passed in the state Senate. I think it was the Housing and Human Services Committee. And in the House, it was the Natural Resource Tourism, something or the other. Those committees housed those bills. The Democrats on those committees, 5 out of 6 on the House, I think 7 out of 8 in the Senate, they were Democrats. They represented districts in Southeast Michigan where the vast majority of the people said, good idea. This is something that we support. And yet, when the bill stays in committee for over a year, and I completely understand that because State Senator Stephanie Chang and people from the People's Water Board and people from Michigan Welfare Rights were going around Southeast Michigan and throughout the state to challenge the misinformation being put forth that this was a handout for irresponsible voters. It was very coded language. They're talking specifically.
Very much so.
Yeah, very coded language.
Perhaps a little bit of dog whistle racism, but
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that took a lot of work. It took a lot of work. That took a lot of time as well. So we understand why these bills sat in committee so that
The narrative had already been set, and
Right,
changing it
right.
takes so long.
right.
You know,
Right.
when Maureen talks about the narrative
Right,
that's already
right.
been set, she's like,
Right.
it was set years and years, 10
Yeah.
years ago,
Yeah.
where they were like,
Yeah.
people in Detroit
Yep.
just, they're lazy, they don't want to pay
Yep.
their bills, they're going to the
Yep.
casino,
Yep.
and it was, and to
don't
change
forget we
that
buy
narrative.
$500 cell phones and $200 gym
Yep.
shoes for our kids.
Yeah, there was this narrative that had been
Yeah.
told, and to be able to change it and to change people's hearts,
That's tough.
it's been a long road.
But to be
And it
devil's
wasn't until
advocate,
other people, until other communities, poor white communities, to be fair, started getting their water shut off to where they were like, okay, you
But
can do
just
that to
to
us
play-
too,
just to
type
play
stuff.
devil's advocate for a second, I do understand why people kind of believe that narrative. It literally was coming from the deputy director of the water department. They
Yeah.
thought he was quoting empirical data when he was just voicing his opinion. So they
So,
really
which-
believed
yeah.
he knew
Always
what he
a
was
problem with the
talking
narrative.
about,
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Always the
Yeah.
problem with
Yeah.
the narrative.
So that's the question that we asked. For the reason that we're talking right now, that was our primary question. Why did it not pass? And we're talking about why it did not pass.
Right.
That was the question we asked. Why did
Yeah.
it not pass? Why did it take so long for it to stay in committee? And then when
When it finally got to the floor, it just couldn't get it across the House floor.
Yeah.
and that was outside. Go ahead.
Yeah,
ahead.
and I mean, people automatically assume that it was Republicans that sank it, and it just simply wasn't. It was a couple Democrats, and one of them was from Detroit.
Yeah, that's true.
So
That's true.
that lived through mass water
We're
shutoffs.
not
That's
going to
true.
talk about the
Yeah.
one they hid out in the Republican chambers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
we were
true.
there. We were
Yeah.
Yeah.
there. We saw what happened. So it's like, but
Right.
that was so what were kind of some of the solutions that you all came up with? I really want to hear about the solutions that you thought that, because this year we've got all of Michigan needs this. We know
True.
that everybody around Michigan, especially people in the UP, or definitely people in the UP, you know, after all of this, what were kind of some of the solutions
Mm.
that you came up with so that we could get water affordability for every Michigander? What'd you come up with?
I'll let Claire and Haley begin, and then I'll piggyback.
I was going to say, we didn't directly come up with like the solutions to it. We just kind of compiled what the legislators said, like for
Would have
solutions for
helped.
it. So I think one of the big ones that a lot of legislators said, like Republicans and Democrats, was that it was a framing issue, which meant that it was a Detroit issue. Everybody still kind of felt like it was being framed as a Detroit issue. Like you guys have said, you guys did a lot of work to combat that. So I think kind of reframing it in a way that focuses more on like rural communities was kind of like the suggestion that we made, even though a lot of work had already been done to combat the issue in the first place. But it was still a big issue that a lot of legislators said.
Yeah, another solution that we talked about during our final presentation was how some legislators told us that we need to expand our advocacy into a more grassroots level in order to get people in those like more suburban rural areas. I have a quote pulled up where a legislator said, "Grassroots level is a great idea, especially if they're able to expand maybe outside of the midtown Detroit and reach people in rural areas." They feel that if you can get people in communities on your side for the movement, maybe there's a better chance that it reaches them and they reflect that in their voting.
And I'll piggyback off of what Haley and
Great
Claire
answers,
said.
guys.
Yeah, that was great. Absolutely great. I'll piggyback off of what they said. So yes, the reframing issue, the legislators, we interviewed 16 legislators, and one of the big problems they said that they saw, one big reason why they said it did not pass was because it was framed as a Detroit issue. And one of the solutions was to try to reframe it as a Michigan-wide public health issue. One person even
Which it
said
is.
which it is.
Yeah.
And you guys are doing what you guys are doing. So it was kind of surprising that they were saying this to us.
Yeah, because it felt like they weren't listening, because we were definitely telling them that.
Well,
Yeah.
Right.
I think to me it goes back to the power issue too. So
Sure.
like I may not have to listen to Michigan Welfare Rights and People's Water Board because you're not giving like thousands of dollars to my campaign. Seriously.
That's right.
I think that, so it's not that you're not doing the work. It's
Mhm.
that the system is set up such that they're incentivized to listen to where the checks are coming from, not public sentiment. That we can we go all the way down that rabbit hole. But to piggyback off of what Claire and Haley was saying, I think it takes resources, but it is something to consider for People's Water Board, Michigan Welfare Rights to reach out to civic organizations outside of the city of Detroit. For example, I'm in Washington County, and in Washington County, I'm connected to this group called, the acronym is We Rock, but they do they're a faith-based organization that does social justice work. So this could be an issue. It should be an issue that We Rock is also concerned about, because we reach people in Ann Arbor, but also Manchester, Dexter, Chelsea, Saline as well. And so if the legislators in the western part of Ann Arbor, where those people individually, they don't deal with water shutoffs, but if they are in solidarity with Michiganders
Yeah.
that are experiencing this issue, that helps broaden the reach. So the state legislators in Manchester and Dexter and Chelsea and Saline, it's on the radar. This is an issue, and increasingly, even people that are dealing with groundwater issues, that rises to the top of their priority list as well if it's being discussed
Yeah.
with civic groups in other parts of the state. So that's one thing that we came up with.
Connecting to other environmental justice organizations
Exactly.
that are in those areas
Yeah.
that have
Exactly.
And
a
that's
far
why
reach. Yeah.
Changing that distorted narrative is so important
Exactly.
because even when we do talk to other groups, a lot of times they're like, well, that's a Detroit issue because
Yep.
that's what they've been hearing, or that issue with people that don't want to pay their bills. Or so we have to work to dispel those mythological narratives and give true facts.
True. True. It's hard work. It's hard
It
work.
It
is.
is,
Yeah. Yeah.
It
but it's
But it's
worthy work.
necessary. It's necessary though. It
It
is.
is. It is.
It is.
I mean, we've got it. We have to care for each other. When it comes to our basic needs,
Absolutely.
we're not going to get that from the top. We live in a capitalistic society that says that we don't matter if we can't work and contribute to it. And that means if you can't work and contribute, you don't deserve water, you don't deserve food, you don't deserve safe housing and things like that, which is all part of the power move, right?
It
You
is.
people can't contribute. You can't
It is.
contribute. And I have the power to take that away from you. So as a society, we have to care for each other. We're the only ones that's going to be able to care for each other. And it's how we've become, it's a very human thing too. It's how we've become who we are today. And we've lived for all of these years is because we lived in caring communities, Yeah.
I think that's also something that I always say is direly missing. People have lost their sense of humanity.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. When you can say, hey, I can take your water and still sleep fine at night. That's where we're at.
But we're
Absolutely.
not. Yeah, that I agree to an extent, but there are organizations like People Water Board
Right. Well, we're the
that
lovers,
basically
right? The people who
we
care.
need organizations like People Water Board and
That's
Michigan
right.
Welfare Rights to remind people that we have a common humanity. We need it.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dr. Brown. That's right.
absolutely.
Do any of you have any final thoughts that you would like to share with our viewers?
I think this is the time to organize right now. I think this is the pivotal time. A lot of people are
That's right.
concerned about what's happening at the federal level, and I think with groups like the People's Water Board and Michigan Welfare Rights, it empowers people. People can believe that I can make a difference at the local levels, the county level, the state level. I can make a difference in my neighborhood, and I think people
Yes.
want to feel empowered right now. So I think it does seem to some extent depressing when you look at the national news, but this is also an opportunity to get people that want to be reached and want to make a difference. So I feel like, kind of energized a bit that we can make a difference. This is the time to make a difference. And then my students also gave me a lot of energy as well because they did so well this semester. It made me feel like this work is worthwhile.
It
I
is
love that.
worthwhile work, most definitely. Haley, Claire, either of you have any final thought?
I was gonna say I really like what Dr. Brown said, that now's the time to kind of organize and everything. And I just wanted to add that the work isn't over yet. We're still gonna be doing the research for the movement,
That's
and
great.
we'll be here all summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say something very similar. I'm very excited to keep working with Dr. Brown and Michigan Welfare Rights Organization for this summer and even into like the next upcoming academic year. We're gonna be around helping out, helping get that work out there so that we can hopefully organize better and get a water affordability passed for all throughout, not just the state but the country.
That's right.
Absolutely. That is
How
the vibe we
wonderful.
want to continue to push out there. This
Yeah,
is a
you're creating
national,
water warriors.
international issue.
It is. It's a global issue.
It's
It's
a
going to take
global
us all.
issue, yeah.
Well, thank you all so much, and thank you for the passion and drive to create such a beautiful moment for us and Michigan with these students in their research. Dr. Brown, thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you to the students for the work that you do. I'm so glad. It does my heart so much good to know that you're going to continue. And yeah, we're in it together, my friends. And to everybody listening, please share this. Think about how you can get involved. You can always get involved with the People's Water Board Coalition and Michigan Welfare Rights. We are always looking for new water warriors to help out. So, and until next time, look out for each other. Times are really, really hard, and try to stay afloat. Bye.